So without further ado, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Adele is going to talk about real-world advocacy from self to sector. And for those who don't know Adele, Adele Walsh joined the city of Charles Sturt in Adelaide in November as their lead coordinator of library strategy, where she manages 70 plus staff across 5 sites, including libraries and blended community centres. She can be found online talking about her greyhound Maggie, or running the 10-minute LinkedIn challenge, helping library folk boost their visibility without the stress. She's focused on practical leadership, building strong teams, and making libraries great places to work and connect. And with that, I will leave it up to Adele. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to not see you. I know that you're there, so hopefully, I'm just gonna, sorry. I'm going to share my slides. But I hope everyone is well this morning. I am presenting from the lands of the Kaurna people, and I pay respects to their elders and emerging leaders. Oh no, I'm having so many computer issues. I'm so sorry. All right, let's get this going. Okay, please work. For the love of God. Can you see my screen, Ella?
Yes, but we can see the notes part as well. So.
Oh, fantastic. All right, so we'll just, okay. I had to restart my computer just before this because always that's the way. All right, let's see how I go without notes then, because I'm not going to be able to do this. If you hear story time, that's because I'm next to a story time right now. So if you hear about some ducks, I'm sorry, but we'll advocate for the ducks subconsciously during my presentation as well. But thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Adele Walsh, and this is the Practically Tragic. Well, that's a good misnomer. Presentation. You'll get honesty, some clarity, a little humor, hopefully, and some actionable tools. And I won't be able to cover everything in depth. I'm going to cover a heck of a lot. But if you've got any questions, I'll give you options to follow up with me afterwards. But the big thing is you don't have to be loud to be heard. A lot of the time I hear, I'm an introvert. But that is, to me, that conveys people think that being a good advocate or advocating for yourself, being visible, is about volume. And we know that volume and talking a lot doesn't mean you're actually getting the job done. So what I'm going to say is you don't have to be loud to be heard, but you do have to be clear. And that's the non-negotiable. But why are we here right now? Well, this is the foundation. Quiet leaders can be powerful. Clear leaders are powerful because they reduce uncertainty. They give surety, even during very challenging times, which we've all been through recently. But let's be real. Most of us are so busy that we're busy all the time. And that actually can be our strongest brand, whether we like that or not. But we want impact. We want to talk about what we're doing, not the tasks, not the door counts. So this is about moving away from ego-driven advocacy in that, and I'll get into that a bit more, but understanding that busy isn't our brand and that clarity and strategy matter a lot more in these kind of conversations than being liked or being loud. My voice is going because I can tell this is going to probably go down not well with some people, but I think to be a good advocate, we have to have some tough conversations. So I hope you're ready for them. Okay, so I've worked across library sectors, education, leadership, communications. I didn't come here to tell you how to do what you're a specialist in or expert in. I came here because I was a specialist and an expert for a long time and I did it in the dark. I thought that working hard would be my visibility. And in fact, it was my hours, my stress that was visible. My work was also visible, but I realized that I needed that more strategic approach to it. So I'm hoping together we can work in some ways to bring ourselves as individuals, as teams, as a sector, more into the light. I didn't used to think I was an advocate, but then I realized I was constantly translating for other teams. I was explaining the impact of things. I was connecting the dots between different people who communicated differently. I was defending in a way that actually saw results, and I was improving the visibility of my teammates. So turns out I've probably always been an advocate. I just probably did it a bit more naturally than some people. But what I'm trying to do in this presentation is tell you a few things you can do specifically. My goal is hopefully there's something you want to try. So I'm going to give you hot takes throughout. This is a big one. When you talk about your work, stop being self-deprecating. I still do it. I need to do it consistently. I need to not do it consistently. A lot of people, when they say, I'm just a librarian, stop. You're already diminishing yourself before you've started your points. We need to stop shrinking ourselves and being apologetic or defensive about being somewhere. Busy is not a brand. I'll keep saying this, is what we hear from everybody. I know a lot of the advocacy usually comes out as something about being defensive and funding and protecting jobs. But if it's about saving FTE, telling people you're busy isn't connecting the dots, but I get why people think it is. So if you just tell people you're busy all the time, it's not the brand you want. And honestly, it's probably my most common brand. And what I find is people don't want to talk to me because they go, I know you're busy on other things. And I said, like, I'm people-centered. If you need me, I'm here. Like, busy doesn't tell anyone that I'm doing my job well at all. Busy isn't useful. We do not need permission to advocate, but we do need to do it well. Your performance plan, it might be a punishment too, but it's also an opportunity to pitch what you're doing well. So maybe changing the framing of that one. My team did it exceptionally well in my last job. Our performance plans were fantastic, and they've been very, very helpful for lots of different reasons afterwards. So with that in mind, and I can't see any of you, but I'm going to give you a reflection prompt. What is something you've done this month that you're proud of in your role that no one knows about? Can you put it in the chat if you're brave? Okay, is no one feeling brave? I'm going to move on. I'm definitely going to give you a worksheet at the end so you can do this later. Okay. Oh, no. No. Please. All right. So some practical tools for you, and try to think this in different ways. My goal is if you come away with one thing you want to try, that's a win. That's always my win. So practical tools for you to help with advocacy. Well, one is you should always know what your key message is. You should know who your audience is and how to communicate to them. That's language, that's brevity, that's a whole heap of things. And you should have an idea of how you want what the result to be. So a lot of people communicate the way they like to be communicated to. This is kind of like what is the people you're trying to advocate to, what's their love language? Well, if their love language is business speak, and I know we all hate that in libraries, then you have to talk business speak, because we don't want the argument to be around it wasn't clear. We want the argument to be, oh, you've made a good argument in your language. How dare you? So that's what we need to do. There's things you can do for yourself. which is LinkedIn recommendations. So I always think the best way of advocating for yourself just as a professional is to razz up other people. And I love doing that. I love going to LinkedIn and doing recommendations and skill endorsements for people that I know do great work. The other thing I think is really important is keeping an outcome log. This can be the same as your performance plan if you don't want to engage in that, but keep a record of things that you've achieved that are measurable. So, like creating something for the first time, increasing like confidence and skills by 3% every quarter, saving $500,000 of collections funds. That keep a record of that, and realistically, you should be probably doing that in your performance plan. But I know people have strong feelings about that, so but create a Google Doc, keep saving those things, and they're really helpful for you to talk about your work. They're really good for you to talk about for future job opportunities for your written and your interview, but also just sharing a lot of your outcomes with particularly your manager, but also your team is really, the people remember great outcomes. That's the thing you want people to remember, not that you're tired, you're busy, you worked crazy hours on the weekend because you wanted it to be just right. That's the kind of stuff we can inadvertently be advocating for ourselves in a way that's quite damaging. But if we do feel like if people understand we work hard, they'll care more about our work. That's not how it works. So the other thing is, some of you might already be doing this, a brag folder in your email. It might be on your desktop, it might be in your Google, but making sure it's somewhere where you can like have nice things. But also, if you're telling people how they're great, hopefully that starts coming back too. In terms of LinkedIn, I also like sharing about my work. I don't say anything inappropriate or breaching confidentiality, but I talk about a lot of my learning on LinkedIn, and that's been really helpful. But I know a lot of people hate LinkedIn, but I miss Twitter, and I want a new space. And not enough librarians are on LinkedIn, so let's change that. Because the more visible we are, the more people have talking points to talk about us in a positive way, as opposed to our three main brands, which is don't eat in the library, return things on time, and shush. And that's not true of any real library anymore, but that is still our brand. The advocacy trap. So doing more equals being valued more. If I work really, really hard, I should be reclassified. If I work really, really hard, I should get all the opportunities. If I work really, really hard, they should be telling everyone how great I am. If I work really, really hard, I should get all the awards. Working hard doesn't mean you're working effectively, and working hard doesn't necessarily mean you're working impactfully. So I don't want to give an example because I feel like someone would know who that is. So, all right, I'll give an example about myself. I was so focused on getting a job that once I was in the job, I realized the level was not in line with what I was actually doing. But by then it was already too late. I'd put all my emphasis on getting a job versus the job I got being like the right level for what I was doing. And any way I could defend being reclassified would involve being signed off in a way, and would have to, I had never had a strong, I'm not going to say it out loud. I couldn't argue effectively with and get it signed off. So my big thing is on that is don't work harder in silence, advocate earlier for yourself. I had a learning from that, which is I was a bit sheepish at the beginning about advocating for myself. And I learned a lot from that one, and I won't be doing that again. But also I have lots of lovely little outcomes and impact statements myself that I can draw out about why I'm great at my job. But in that specific scenario, all the things I could use as an examples were probably not going to get signed off. Purpose and audience. A big thing we can do better as a tool is using plain English. Your advocacy, the way you give visibility to something needs to actually land on an audience. That means I support teaching outcomes, which I've seen variations of this a lot. And I'm a teacher, by the way, former. Support doesn't, it's true, but support can sound like you're just like in the background. Teaching outcomes are measurable, so why aren't we measuring them? So instead, plain English is much more memorable. It gets the job done. I once had a colleague in the last year or so say plain English is kind of for like not smart people. And I was like, okay, yeah. But plain English is inclusive language. Plain English is strategic language, and plain English is also can be measurable. I've worked in academic libraries. One of the big problems in terms of academia is they need a research engagement team to help them convey what they're doing in a way that people understand and value. And in libraries, we use a lot of jargon, and we need a lot of help there too. And we sometimes we've put together all the effort of the messaging, but we haven't thought about how it will be received, how it will be communicated. And honestly, I did a lot of work on that the last few years, and people have a very fixed idea about how they want to be presented, but it might not be received the way, like that translation piece is pretty important. I don't, yeah, vague language is frustrating because you want people to remember it. People do not have time. The other thing I'll say is if you're advocating up, and I don't want to say advocating is always defensively, by the way, but if you're talking about particularly your team or yourself, you want it short, sharp, and shiny, something they can remember. You don't want lots of language around it. You want it something punchy that sticks in their brain. For me, that 230 immediately sticks in my brain. I made that one up. The other things you could do is increased something by 20% instead of worked hard or was successful. People use successful all the time. Success is also measurable. I saved $30,000 by consolidating licenses, not was in charge of systems. Plain English is important. I'm not seeing how any of this is landing, so I hope everyone's feeling safe and not too attacked. So one big thing is how we talk about our jobs, because our jobs are us. One of the big things I've seen is people cannot say what they do without using their job title or their team name. So I'm going to give you a minute. In less than 10 words, I want you to tell me a skill you have, or what the impact in your job in less than 10 words, because that's a big translation piece. For instance, turning chaos into strategy that gets funded. Figuring out why things don't work. I like that, but you want something active as well. It's not just investigating it. Are you solving it? You want to be active. You don't want to be a passenger, because none of us are passengers. Providing access to scholarly resources. I would make that more active too. You're not a door. I describe stuff so that other people can use the computer to find it. I like that. I know some people be like, no, that's really clear. It may be instead of describe, because that sounds a bit like it's a transaction. It's explain, translate, teach, something a bit more active that shows your, like, we use a lot of language that diminishes our impact quite a lot. We're actually often our worst enemies in that respect. I solve problems for students who can't access online resources from home. I solve problems for students so they have access from home. The other thing we use a lot is deficit language. And that's a big one for libraries, and I'll get into that. Finding workarounds for technical problems that when we can't afford the solution. I love it. I would make that more active too. MacGyver was smart. MacGyver found workarounds, but we need to show the expertise a little bit more in that without using your job title. And that's where it's really, really hard. I love that people are having a go. Thank you so much. We'll keep moving, but it's hard, right? Because we use our job titles. My job title, lead coordinator, library strategy, I'm the library manager. And in terms of library role titles, they're so not helpful because we just have to tell people all the time what we do. And having that nailed is so important. Having that nailed for yourself, having that nailed for your team and your organization, having 3 of them is really, really vital. So if that's one thing you work on the next week, I would love that because you'll find you'll be using it a lot. Okay. So you don't have to do it alone. If you want a better culture, better visibility, better outcomes, it does start with the team. So some hot takes. A team that doesn't make their outcomes visible is just noise. And by noise, I mean we work really hard and we're underappreciated. We're busy. We work harder than everybody else. Some teams, that's their brand. And give me a thumbs up if you thought of a team straight away when you heard me say that. Oh, I can't see it. Yeah, thanks, Ella. So what they don't realize is that's their brand and that's how they're advocating. They're advocating about how hard they're working. And to me, that's really can be rough because it's assuming, one, that other teams aren't working hard. Everyone's busy. Just means that are you effective? Are you impactful? So I actually making sure that the way your team is visible is outweighing, is more in the positive, in the impact, in the specifics versus the feels. Talking about how busy and how tired and how overworked you are might all be true. Not compelling as an argument for anything. What do you want people to do with that? Am I going to be saying, Ella, this person over here said how busy they are. Can you help them? And you'll be like, it's not my specialization. And no. So why are we complaining? Well, clearly, maybe I want more resources. I want my job to be different. I don't like what I'm doing. It's conveying a whole heap of stuff that's not useful. So when we advocate, even when we don't realize we're advocating, it just can be really bad. Don't let chaos be your brand. I'm sure we've all heard of, oh, we weren't included in this, or oh, we went to the meeting, no one talked to us, or no one tells us what's going on. Chaos is always present. My thing is making sure you go to meetings prepared, making sure you're not hitting everybody with 3,000 things you're thinking about. It's a risk with me. What are the 2 things you want to bring up? What do you need them to do? Why, who, purpose. Don't go into a meeting with other team members and disagree in front of another team. That's not about the person you're disagreeing with being poor at their job. It's that you haven't got your shit together as a team. So that's chaos. That's what you're actually conveying, even if you might be in the right. You need to be together, but that involves a lot of other things. I'm going to go back to busy again, but busy doesn't mean effort. Busy doesn't mean you've been evaluative. Busy doesn't mean we'll move on. I've know busy is the biggest word in libraries and any workplace I've ever been in. We need to stop using it. So there's this idea that the manager can solve everything, but you might have more influence in your team sideways than you do up. You can still lead without being the actual leader. And I've seen this all the time. I think about Judith at La Trobe University Library, who I think is an absolute champ. She leads with work ethic, with outcomes, with being a decent human being. Like her advocacy is just being entirely her. She probably doesn't even think of herself as a leader, but she's one of the best advocates for La Trobe University Library. And she'd be horrified that I'm saying this, but I always pump her up because she's made choices. I'm sure some of it's deliberate, but she's a great advocate because she is talking about all the right things. She's treating people with respect. She's being inclusive, and people listen to her. Okay. So here's a question for you. When's the last time you gave someone in your team, a teammate, some written praise or thanks or some feedback? I just want you to have a think. You don't have to respond. If it's been over a month, can I say I'd love you to prioritize that in the next week? Because if we're always talking about what's hard, we need to offset that with what's good. And I'm not saying pump up someone's tires like your work bestie if you don't actually know if it's good. I'm saying if you notice something good, let them know. Tell them what you noticed, the impact of it, how you appreciated it. Just like you would with, we always talk about constructive feedback. It also can be used for positive. I'll also say, in terms of advocating for teams, one of the pitfalls, and I haven't got this on my slides, is advocating for someone who's not good at their job. Or all you hear is the feels. I'm busy, I'm overworked, I'm not appreciated, I should be a different level. No one appreciates me. But you also know that they're complaining 70% of the time. Complaining isn't feedback. If they've got some feedback for the leader, it has to be constructed as some feedback. Complaining is what I've recently heard described as, when people complain, but they don't complain, like it's an observation. I've heard it described as dry begging. So they're waiting for someone to come in and advocate for them. And I've been that person before, like, oh, they're like really, really suffering. I've got to go and advocate for them to the leader because if they're not going to advocate for themselves adequately, do not take responsibility for that because it becomes your persona as well. It will impact you because they don't advocate for a work bestie unless you know they're absolutely killing it. So team practical advice. Are you sharing something at least monthly with your whole organization? And I don't mean like if you're a uni, maybe just the library, public library, maybe it's the council, maybe it's not. Are you sharing something monthly that's about some yays? And it's not about how many programs you did, but it might be like, we've had a 5% increase in attendees, or, 97% of people learnt something in our sessions, or, we've introduced this new thing. Like you need to talk about your work positively and frequently. Because the problem with library advocacy on an individual team and organizational level is often it's very infrequent. And it's usually when things are really bad. If we're communicating all the time about our impact, they've already got all the notes in their head. That impacts things before we even know they're going to happen, good, bad, and ugly. It means you might be tapped on the shoulder for something you don't know. You're doing like the influencing work. It's invisible, but it's valuable. Email is something I've always done. Email kudos is if I work in one team and I've had a great interaction with another team, I'll email their manager, CC them in, and give like a constructive, positive email about their impact. I know probably a few people, if they're from La Trobe, have had me do that for them. I do it here at my workplace. I've done that for years. That brings advocacy that is measurable for that person. It also does reflect great on me, but honestly, I just do it for the intrinsic yay. I like other people being seen for doing great stuff. But I would never do it for someone who I don't know for sure has done the work, because I never want to be advocating for someone who's taking credit for someone else or actually hasn't done the thing, because that can damage me too. Introducing, if you don't already, retrospectives after projects is super important. I call it a PMI because I'm a previous primary school teacher. So that's like getting everyone together within 2 days of a project or a program happening, listing all the pluses, the minuses, and the interestings. I usually call it S, but PMS doesn't sound as cool, although it's very important for a lot of people. S, surprises. Surprises have more of a positive leaning. But as a result of that retrospective, I would put a one-pager together of some key KPIs. The wins, usually they were the surprising wins or something like, some anecdotal feedback or something, maybe a photo, and then a list of recommendations that turn the minuses into what we would do next time. So it's not sticking in this went to shit, it's we will do this next time. So we're never saying, it's never what we're putting out is this was bad. It's showing our capability, adaptability, capacity, continuous improvement. It's showing a momentum. It's showing a reflection. It's showing our work in a way that isn't talking about tasks. Document your praise. Keep it. We've talked about that. But also model feedback tools, not drama. You can give feedback to colleagues. If you're having a problem with someone, you go straight to your leader and you haven't actually tried to deal with it. It's handballing it. So have you given them some feedback? Have you used some, if someone's always negative, could you say, oh, that's frustrating. What might you do next time? You do not have to get stuck in someone else's narrative. But feedback tools are really useful. If you're not across scenario behavior impact model, SBI, definitely look that up. There's also the ACT model, which I always forget what it stands for, but they're good ones if you're not the manager, but it's a nice way to sort of think about how to give feedback. And if it's a mate, you could probably do it a way more relaxed way. But not addressing stuff that's rough just means it will get worse because they don't know. People think people know that they're doing stuff that's like not great. They don't. Most of the time they don't. You know how in television they always talk about everyone thinks they're the hero, even the villain. Oh, that's a theme. We never think we're the problem, but and we all think we're self-aware. Most of us aren't. A lot of us are just sensitive. I have ADHD, so self-awareness can be low, but my sensitivity is high. So I'm super hypervigilant, but it means I have to be a lot more thoughtful about how I use language and how much I talk. But I also understand right now I'm talking at you full force. So we'll keep moving. So don't let chaos be your brand. Oh, also just on the last slide, if someone's great at their job, don't just advocate for them with colleagues, advocate for them with any manager you come across, advocate for them in emails, advocate for great people because it reflects well on you that you know that they're great. Also, a lot of people do great work and people don't know. So I worked with someone whose last day was yesterday. I managed his manager, but I saw the impact of his work because he was actually really good at sharing it. So I was able to advocate for him with a LinkedIn recommendation and skill endorsements. It took me 2 minutes and it made a difference to his visibility. I did have a chat with him too about before he left, but he already knew I'd done a LinkedIn without being asked. That was really easy. And that means other people see his work from a different point of view. So the loudest person isn't the most strategic. As someone who's usually the most talkative, the loudest, and probably everything, doesn't mean I'm the best at it, but I do a lot of thinking around it. Complaints aren't feedback. Most people think they're giving feedback. Feedback, if you think of it as a model, if it's just, Shyla, she was a mess in that meeting. Maybe give some feedback to Charlotte. But a lot of people say I gave feedback and they actually haven't. Have a bit of a think about if you're going in to bring up an issue, do it thoughtfully and prepared because it can look chaotic. And is it your feelings that are hurt or is it the work that's been hurt? I know. Well, this is communication 101, but it's stuff that we deal with in our families, it's stuff we deal with in our relationships, and stuff we deal with in the workplace. So busy isn't a deliverable. Negging, blaming, eye rolling in a team environment, it shuts down trust. Someone told me to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. That's something I work on being consistent about, because I'm stressed, people feel it, and I hate it. I have to do a lot of work to try and regulate that. But you can be dissatisfied in your job, but you don't have the right to impact other people's workday. So instead of negging, blaming, or eye rolling, maybe have an honest conversation and prepare for it. Maybe it's not the workplace you want to be in. Maybe it's not the role you want. I don't know. But be aware that that's you advocating in a way that's very, very damaging for you and your team potentially. People don't care more when you're inflicting. They care more about the damage you're doing. Also, you don't want that to be your brand. Instead, talk about what's our next step. What's the outcome here? What would you suggest? Get that momentum. Don't be in the feels. We shouldn't be in the feels too long, because feelings aren't compelling as arguments. Okay. I hope you're still with me and haven't logged off. So you don't need permission to lead. I was always leading within my teams, no matter where I was. I think maybe a bit of it's the teaching, a bit of that's my personality, a lot of that's probably my rampant social justice aspect for my ADHD. But consistency, clarity is something everyone should be aiming for. It's not a pay grade. And we know people who are in leadership, have been in leadership, that are probably the problem, because they can't be consistent and they're not clear. But we can help them by giving them more of that outcome stuff. Yeah. Run retrospectives, take meeting notes, share the win, be purposeful. Ask, what does success look like for our team? So it's an open question. It's a hard one if you're not clear. And just on that one, if you don't understand, ask that question a different way. If you don't agree, don't say you don't understand. A lot of people conflate the two. Own it. I don't agree. Like, I'm struggling with this because I can see this as the implication, instead of I don't understand, because then people think you have to clarify clarity, instead of that's not what you're telling people is not what they're responding to. And then people get frustrated with the response. That happens with my mum a lot too. And great team advocacy starts from within. Calm is contagious, clarity is contagious, chaos is contagious. You can start just doing a few things and you might see some good impact, but you also don't have to stoke the fire of people who aren't in leading a lot of that negativity. You can just go, oh, that's frustrating, move on, grey rocket. If you don't know what grey rocking is, maybe look it up. But you don't have to be stuck in that conversation. It will drain you and it'll make everything seem harder, even if it's not. Empathy has boundaries. So mini activity. What's something small that made a big difference on a team that you've worked in terms of getting the word out? Culturally, outcome-wise. Something I started doing with my team at La Trobe in the last year or two is we would do a monthly infograph. It was really easy to do once we decided what it was. It was 5 things. We'd just update it and send it out to our leaders via email, and we'd put it on Teams chat for the rest of the library. That was super valuable. I heard that got used in lots of different contexts that we would never be aware of. So as very little effort, great outcome. Something one of my new colleagues here at Charles Sturt did is started a mystery chip competition accidentally. So once a week, someone brings in a mystery packet of chips, tells everyone if it's veg or not, and on a Teams, everyone has to give their guesses before 3 o'clock. But it's not people grizzling. And being discontent, being dissatisfied, being upset, all valid. But if that's all people are hearing in your team and of your library, you're doing yourself huge damage. You want what you're doing great and the success stories, the outcomes to be the driver, not people's feelings. Okay, advocating well as a team builds the scaffolding for sector influence. So credibility starts at home. So did anyone give any examples? I'm just going to have a look. A jigsaw puzzle in the staff room. Minus positive, minus interesting. Oh, what else? We've got jealous of hearing the team next to us give TV, movie reviews and meetings. So now we have a slot in our weekly meeting. It's really nice. Starting our weekly meeting with a good news story for everyone. A big one for me as a manager was making sure I had the agenda 2 days ahead for everyone, particularly our quiet people who want to like ruminate a bit before that. And also making sure any actions and decisions were documented and conveyed within a day of that meeting. That sounds simple. It's really hard to do, and it's super valuable for that clarity bit too. Starting a team meeting with 5 minutes of training at the beginning actually has huge well-being and learning outcomes and bonding. So maybe each one of you could take turns doing a little 5-minute activity that's like not a huge amount, but it also shows leadership in your team. Okay, so some hot takes. Outputs aren't outcomes. They're both valuable, but a lot of us count dog counts. People came to the event. People went to the page. But we also know people might have come in the door and fallen asleep the whole time. We are a refuge, that's great, but doesn't necessarily mean they're using collection or anything. That's okay. They might have come to the event, but they might have not learned anything. They might have gone away not saying good things about it. They might have never come back to the library again. They might go to that page and stay on it for 3 seconds. And if I know you're in systems, I know you're like, yeah. So like data, like outputs are important, but outcomes are even more important. You need those for the stories. The reason people always talk about stories is because stories are emotional. Stories are the things that stick, which is why I keep saying, if you're always talking about negative feelings, they're the things that stick to the wall, not the positive stories. So you really have to try and outweigh the negative with the positive, or balance it at least, because you're always fighting against a tide that's stronger. So we always talk about free. We save people money. We're saving you this amount of money. It's the same, but it's different. Do you see what I mean? Free doesn't necessarily have value. It can, but if we save you money every time you come to us, awesome. And if we save you money and we're reducing the carbon footprint, yeah. So it's just tweaking things a little bit. Something I heard a lot, I've been through 3 restructures in 5 years. A lot of people would talk about if they would understand, then this wouldn't be happening. And I started asking more open questions. And it was basically, if they understood what I do, they would care more. And in caring more, they would change their minds. But that's not a compelling argument for a restructure scenario, because it's not about caring as much as it hurts. It's actually about FT impact decisions. So talking about your outcomes and impacts is so much more valuable than wanting to be understood. My team was impacted at La Trobe last year. I had a lot of people tell me, like they just need to understand. And I said, look, I've been arguing for a year, really like proper arguments, talking about all the business speak, and it's still not getting through. People didn't know all that was happening. People saw people sharing about our colleagues sharing how much they cared about us and how important we were. But I knew it wasn't going to work because I'd already done all the business work. It was already happening. It wasn't about my team not being great at our work. We measurably were fantastic at our work, but that wasn't the argument. So we did everything right. It still didn't go correct. But I'm okay, by the way. But it's not about being understood. It's about being clear and hoping that can influence the action. I think about it as water. You can't really stop water flow, but you can redirect it. If you work on influence early, you can redirect it in a way that you can like ride as opposed to get drowned. So something I think about a lot is the AI. When AI started, everyone in libraries was like, ah, it was very Muppet all the time. And not necessarily not for good reason, but we're supposed to be technologically advanced, innovative, blah, blah, blah. And all we talked about was yuck, 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 yuck. No, 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 no. We had an opportunity to lead there, but not always just talking about in the deficit. And I'm not saying getting on board and saying, yes, AI all the time, but in having what we were talking about in libraries at every conference, every network, every team meeting, every staff meeting, it was just like negative feelings about that all the time. And we just didn't, because that was so much the predominant thing, we didn't think about how we could lead in there because no one else knew what to do. So sometimes it's not, we had more time to lead if we spent less time spiraling. And that happens a lot in libraries too. So if you think about your team or your library or your organization, could you tell me what the impact of your work is? One or two things off the top of your head that's measurable. And a lot of you will be like, oh, I don't have numbers. No, it could be that you've created a neurodiverse friendly space in your site. It could be that you've reduced 4 steps to getting to something online. It could be that you've introduced accessibility guides for every site of your organization. It doesn't have to be a percentage increase. We just need to be a bit more creative, and we're very good at being creative. All right, we're running out of time. Outcomes, you need to write better surveys. If you're not already, please do it better. Like asking people about catering, who cares? That was nothing more devastating than working on a two-day conference and that I designed for 18 months, and all the feedback was about the bloody catering. But I asked them about the catering. Ask them what they're learning. Are they more confident? Do they feel connected to the library? Ask better questions. Ask discovery questions, not in surveys evaluating your work, but out on the floor. My team would go on the floor about a month after O week, and we spent like 15 minutes. We talked to like 8 people each, and we asked them, what do you know now that you wish you'd found out about the library a month ago? Because we did lots of programs, tours, etc. And the thing that stuck with me, one person is like, oh, it would have been useful to know where the bloody return chute was. We start the tour inside. Even I hadn't even thought about the fact that no one ever told them where the return chute was. There you go. Yeah, templates, better surveys, start exploring that. And the monthly wins roundouts, like outside of your organization, like into your council, etc., is great. Something we're playing with as a public library is we have an intranet for our council. So I've asked our collections team, who always get it, like we're like, no one knows what we do. But we've started doing recommendations of things that are very sort of professional reading things to our internal staff audience. So every month we do this is stuff we've got on site. And what I loved is it was called the Library Roundup, but the headline was borrow the book that Mark Zuckerberg didn't want you to read. So you can believe careless people got borrowed a lot. But the person who wrote it just assumed everyone on council staff was a member. So I looked at it and went, can we just tell them how to sign up online? And we've had more borrowing on the staff, and we've had more borrowing and more people signing up. So immediately had an outcome after one edition. So what I'd love you to do for your sector is post 1 or 2 sentences with a reflection or takeaway using the ANZREG hashtag, ideally on LinkedIn, but I know a lot of people are on there. Think about somewhere visible where you can put that, because you'll start finding other people. That's strategic, it's staggered, it's visible, but also think about what your message is. It's like, well, Adele Walsh's keynote was a waste of time. I hope not, but it might have been. But maybe it's like, well, Adele Walsh made me think about a few. No, you don't have to mention me, by the way. But, I'm going to try this one thing. Or I'm going to try and stop saying I'm busy, which I'm also trying to work on. But also remembering that we are an ecosystem. School libraries impact academic libraries. Academic libraries and public libraries and school libraries impact publishing, whether they appreciate us or not. Public libraries carry a different kind of load, but we are stronger together, and we do actually need to advocate outside of our little lane. We need to be helping others, signal boosting, reflecting, connecting. So that's why I think LinkedIn is really is a good opportunity. We've done that one. That was a last minute slide. So the qualification trap. Ooh. So it's a bit like cannibalism. If we're complaining a lot of people coming into libraries without qualifications, we're also sort of arguing that people with qualifications are impactful and that people without qualifications aren't. I know lots of qualified librarians who are amazingly respectful, inclusive, impactful people at jobs, but I also know people who aren't qualified. That's not the problem. We need to stop fighting each other and talk about, like, we need everybody, because a lot of stuff I'm talking about isn't something that a lot of people who might have come up through traditional librarianship have had the opportunity to learn or haven't had modeled to them. That's not a judgment. That's just how it is. I've learned from some great leaders. I've been lucky. I also just, read too much. We're going to skip that. So what I want the big thing is, it's not about noise. It's about clarity, and it's about showing up. It's about being purposeful, not having 6 points, but maybe having 2 that are going to be, and conveying them in a way that will be received by the audience, and know what you want to happen as a result, but not demanding it. Influence. And it won't be just one thing. You've got to quietly do things. It's like relationship management. And I don't mean like negging quietly. Like being clear about the value of something in an outcome measure is super valuable. And whether that's you, your colleague, your team, your organization. Just on the if you understood, I'm just going to people don't care how, I'm going to talk to myself. I don't care how my car works. I care that it runs and it gets me to work. I don't need to understand how the car works. I really don't want to. I just know that it makes my life easier. And when it's not working, it's not. So that's what I need to it's not about understanding the car, it's valuing the car. We need people to value what we do for them that makes their lives easier, not talk about the motor and the wheels and how that person hit us and that leader jumped in the back seat and took us a different direction. So I've covered a lot in a very little amount of time. I actually probably prepared 20 times this. I am thinking about putting it into some sort of learning module because there's a lot. But what I want to say is, if you've got any questions, want me to explain anything, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm Adele J. Walsh. DM me if you want to stay anonymous, and I will answer it publicly with not saying who it is. Okay, so I'll maintain anonymity. I have a Substack that I'm about to start up again, and I do have Instagram if you like dogs. So 10 hours of prep, 30 slides, 7 minutes late, 3 drafts, 2 meetings and 1 presentation. This is how we usually talk about our impact. That's not impact. That's the sausage being made. No one cares. I care. But that doesn't matter. Impact is an effort. And with that in mind, you're going to tell me the impact of this presentation. So that QR code, you got it? I can walk away from this going, my presentation was a great success. I don't know. And last, I hope everyone's got it. Done all this work. Help me. I'm kidding. It's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. So this is me advocating. Now it's your turn. I had so many, one last thing, because everything's gone. Last note, if we advocate for ourselves well, consistently, truly, and frequently, and if we raise the way, we raise that together, we stop waiting for other people to explain our value. We're telling people what our value is, so then it becomes their speaking points. If we do this a bit of work now, it helps. I had a counsellor mention something I did 2 weeks ago in a council meeting, completely unrelated to libraries, because she heard the messaging. We give people the right talking points. We stop hoping someone will notice us, like a wallflower waiting on the wall, waiting for anyone to invite us to dance, even if it's Mr. Collins. We lead, we clarify, we act like we are there, we belong. This is not arrogance, this is advocacy. Stop apologizing, stop being defensive, talk about the stuff that you do well all the time. On that, I am so sorry for being late, but I deeply appreciate the opportunity. And if you want me to expand on anything or share more, please do hit me up on LinkedIn. Sean, do you need me to stop?
Hi Adele. Look, from our perspective, I'm sure we've got a few minutes left. If people do want to ask questions. I just want to say thank you very much for a fantastic presentation, Adele. I actually started my library journey at the City of Sturt many, many years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So this has been a really, really lovely presentation. And as soon as you mentioned story time, it's like, I know exactly where you are because I remember what it was like when I was there too.
I love story time. I started out as a teacher, so I know a lot of people find it a lot, but for me, it just feels very comforting. And to know I still know the nursery rhymes words is good. But sometimes when they've gone and you're like, oh, I'm old. It's been 20 years since I thought about that one.
Yeah, you don't escape it.
Does anyone have any questions, I guess?
There was one question in the chat with regards to any recommendations in terms of books or reading to support some of the things that you've spoken about today.
So I went through a whole spiral last night and rewrote my whole presentation, which is why it might have been a little bit bumpy. Yes, I have a whole heap of stuff. I'll put it on my LinkedIn. It just isn't in a way that you want to see right now. But I will say, LinkedIn people hate. I do understand it. It's way better on your phone than it is on PC. It's your professional website, whether you like it or not. So you might as well make it a bit more you. I do have on my LinkedIn, I have some guidance on how to fix it really quickly, like 10-minute things you can do. In terms of things to read, I'm going to give you a whole list because I know I'll say it wrong and then people I couldn't find it. The other thing, look, I didn't talk about diversity, neurodiversity, accessibility, any of the things that make all this, what I'm saying, way more complicated. And I guess the thing is, listening to podcasts and things about the professional experience of the people who have that intersection is super important. I'm very aware that I'm someone with neurodiversity. I've been chosen to be very open about it because no one is. But that also means if I'm 7 minutes late, that is the representation of ADHD people for a lot of people now. And I've seen and that's unfortunately representation biting you on the ass. So that's something I deeply think about, but I also think it's really important for people to see me. I'm good at a lot of this because of my neurodiversity. I'm a leader because of my neurodiversity, not but in spite of my neurodiversity. It doesn't mean it's not hard because I have to work real, real hard. But it's the sort of stuff I'm trying to talk about a lot more. But basically, outcomes, evidence. If you're just looking at data that you're pulling from a computer, that's not enough because that doesn't tell you the whole story. And we all know that, but we also don't do better a lot of the time. The last 2 weeks, I've been going on the floor of the library with a little Microsoft form on my phone. And I got to someone say, hey, how often do you come here? And while they're saying that, I tick the site I'm at. How often do you come to our library? And they tell me, just tick that. And what's the main reason you come back? And I've never got the similar answer. But the first one I got was about one of my children's teams, to come back to your point, Sean. It was someone who was really struggling with me talking about outcomes. It felt like an attack because we only talk about outcomes all the time when we have to be defensive. And I was like, And it just happened that the first person I talked to was a mum who has moved to a different council, but still comes back here every Thursday because that person works on Thursdays. And they've had a relationship with them for 4 years, and she's great at her job. But she had chalked that up as, I do that every day. That's my job. She hadn't thought about that making impact. And that's why measuring impact doesn't have to be a defensive move. Sometimes it's making you realize how great you are at your job in a way you had dismissed already. And that's, for me, is like, how do we polish the diamond? But also sometimes the diamond is in a bucket of bullshit too. So, and we can be great at bullshitting. We're great at finding problems and patterns and all those things. But if that's our entire narrative, that's the danger for us, because we just look complicated and chaotic, not impactful and united. And I think that's where libraries have a lot to get better at really quickly. But not everyone can do it either. All right, that was a big soapbox moment. Sorry, Sean.
No, it was a fantastic soapbox. It's passionate, which is what we love here as well too.
I'll try to put something on LinkedIn straight away, but I'll follow up as well.
No, it's all good. For those who aren't following in the chat, Ella has said that she will also make sure that the list of recommendations will be emailed around, so everyone will have access to them that way as well too. I guess in the context of time, are there any final questions we have for Adele for this morning?
I asked the committee what they like. Do you want me to kick the hornet's nest? And I actually went way softer than I thought I was going to. But the one thing I will say on the representation level is the right person in different committees doesn't need to be the most hierarchical person. It needs to be the person who's going to advocate the best and have the knowledge. Those two things. If you're going to meetings and you're not contributing, you're not going in prepared, you are loitering. You're damaging the library or by being there and not being active and being prepared and being deliberate. If you can't, that's the risk. But I also say, ask who's not in the room. That's not about us necessarily, but if someone's not in the room, ask that. Look at the invitation list. Is there a reason this team wasn't invited? Advocate for other people just as much as you're advocating for yourself. Because we want people to do that for us, but we have to do it for others so they remember to do it for us. Yeah, sorry. Soapbox, that was like the fourth one.
We love the soapboxes, it's all good. Yeah. I haven't seen any other questions float up in the chat, so in that case, Ella, I might pop it over to you to finish up. But again, Adele, thank you. It's been lovely having you.
Thanks,
and
Sean.
lovely to hear about your journey and your approach to things. It's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Cheers. I appreciate it, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. I just want to also say very quickly that, like I said yesterday with our other keynote, in recognition of the contribution of Adele today, ANZREG will be making a donation to the charity of Adele's choice, and I believe that is the Indigenous Literacy Foundation. So we will be making that donation very shortly. I just want to say again, thank you very much, Adele. It would have been better if Maggie was in the background, but you know,
I'm not at home.
I know.
She has done a cameo on every presentation I've ever done, but if you want to see her, she's on Insta stories all the time. But thank you so much to Ella. I always rewrite the last minute, and it's not ideal, but I do apologize for starting late. I was here, something went wrong. So
technical difficulties. She wasn't late. It just wasn't working.
I wasn't late. I have time blindness. I'm paranoid about being late, but I appreciate it. And thank you very much. If you need anything, reach out, DM, and I will happy to share some answers publicly without your name being mentioned at all. Yep. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation. Go hard, advocate strong, be clear, and shut down bullshit.